You know that feeling when you walk into a room, say the right things, smile at the right moments, and somehow still feel invisible? Like people are looking through you instead of at you. It's one of the loneliest feelings in the world. Not because you're alone, but because you're surrounded by people and still not connecting. Most people assume this is just who they are. I'm not naturally charming. Some people just have it. They write it off as a personality trait they were never handed, like eye color or height. But here's what the research actually shows. Social magnetism isn't something you're born with. It's something you do. It's a collection of small, learnable behaviors that change how people feel in your presence. And people who seem naturally magnetic have simply practiced these without realizing it. This video isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about becoming more of who you actually are, just more intentional about it. And it starts with 10 habits that quietly shift everything. If this sounds like something you need, subscribe right now. We cover this kind of real, psychology-backed self-improvement every single week. Now let's get into it. Habit number 1. You listen like you have nowhere else to be. Think about the last conversation where someone made you feel truly heard. Not just nodded at, actually heard. Rare, right? Most people aren't listening during a conversation. They're waiting, mentally rehearsing their next point, thinking about how they'll respond, half present at best. And the person talking can feel it, even if they can't name it. Magnetic people do something different. They listen like the conversation in front of them is the only thing happening on Earth. No glancing at phones. No finishing your sentences. No redirecting to their own story the second you pause. UCLA research on interpersonal connection found that feeling genuinely listened to activates the same reward centers in the brain as receiving a gift. Full attention isn't just polite, it's neurologically powerful. The microbehavior is simple. When someone finishes speaking, pause for 1 full second before you respond. Maintain soft, relaxed eye contact. Don't interrupt, don't redirect. Just receive. That pause alone communicates something most people never say out loud. You matter enough for me to actually think before I speak. And that feeling? That's the beginning of magnetism. Habit number 2. You validate before you advise. Here's a pattern that kills more connections than people realize. Someone shares a problem, and before they've even finished the sentence, the other person is already offering solutions. Fixing, advising, jumping straight into have you tried. It feels helpful. It's not. What people actually want, before any advice, before any solution, is to feel like what they're experiencing makes sense. They want someone to say, with their words or their presence, I get it. I'd feel that way too. Psychologists call this emotional validation, and it's one of the most powerful relational tools that exists. When someone feels validated, their nervous system literally settles. The emotional brain stops bracing for judgment and starts opening up. The language is simple. That makes sense. I'd feel exactly the same way. That sounds genuinely hard. These aren't empty phrases, they're bridges. They signal safety before solutions. Fixers are well-intentioned, but validators are magnetic because they make people feel understood instead of managed. Listen first, validate second, then, only if asked, advise. That sequence changes everything. Habit number 3. You ask questions that make people think, not just talk. Small talk has a bad reputation, and honestly, it deserves it. What do you do? How's the weather been? These questions don't open doors, they open waiting rooms. People answer on autopilot because they've answered 100 times before. Magnetic people ask differently. They ask questions that make people pause, not because the question is hard, but because it's interesting. What's been surprising you lately? What are you most excited about right now? What made you choose that path? These questions do something remarkable. They make people feel interesting. And here's the psychological truth. People don't fall in love with the person who talks the most. They fall in love with the person who makes them feel most alive in conversation. Harvard research confirmed that talking about ourselves activates the same dopamine pathways as food and money. The right question is essentially a gift to someone's brain. Try these 3. What's been the best part of your week? What are you working on that you're genuinely excited about? What's something most people don't know about you? Ask 1. Then actually listen to the answer. Watch what happens to the energy in the room. Habit number 4. You remember the small things. Imagine bumping into someone you met 3 weeks ago, and they say, hey, how did that job interview go? You seemed really nervous about it. How does that feel? Not just nice, significant. Because in a world where most people are barely present during conversations, someone remembering a small detail from weeks ago sends one unmistakable message. You were worth remembering. Most people forget details because they were never fully present when they heard them. Magnetic people retain details because they were actually paying attention, and they follow up, not as a strategy, but as a natural extension of genuinely caring. The practical side: right after meeting someone, mentally repeat one key detail they shared. Their dog's name, the trip they're planning, the thing they were stressed about, or quietly note it in your phone later, not as a database, but as a small act of respect. When you follow up on those details later, you don't just seem thoughtful. You are thoughtful, and people feel the difference. Memory, in this context, is just care made visible. Habit number 5. You don't perform, you presence. If you've ever walked away from a social situation feeling exhausted and hollow, like you were on the entire time, but somehow still didn't connect, this habit is the reason why. Most people in social settings are performing, trying to be funny, trying to seem smart, scanning the room for approval, adjusting themselves in real time based on how they think they're landing. It's exhausting because it's essentially a live audition with no clear judges. And people feel it. Tryhard energy has a texture. It's slightly desperate, slightly tense, and it unconsciously pushes people away. Neuroscience backs this up. Mirror neurons in our brains constantly read the emotional state of people around us. When someone is anxious and performing, we absorb that tension without knowing why. When someone is calm and present, we relax without knowing why either. The shift is internal. Before your next conversation, take one slow breath. Slow your body language down by about 20%. Stop trying to impress anyone and start trying to genuinely see them. Presence isn't passive. It's the most magnetic thing you can bring into a room. And if this is resonating with you, share this video with someone who needs it, because these habits are too important to keep to yourself. Habit number 6. You make people feel safe to be themselves. This is where magnetism stops being about technique and starts being about something deeper. Think about the people in your life you feel most comfortable around. What do they have in common? Chances are, it's not that they're the most impressive or the most articulate. It's that around them, you don't feel like you have to perform either. You can say the half-formed thought. Admit the embarrassing thing. Show up without the mask. That feeling has a name: psychological safety. And research from Harvard Business School found it's the single biggest predictor of trust and connection in human relationships, not intelligence, not status, not even shared interests. Magnetic people create this environment almost effortlessly because they've stopped needing to be right, to win, or to look good at someone else's expense. They laugh at themselves first. They admit when they don't know something. They don't correct your small mistakes in front of others. These aren't weaknesses. They're signals. They tell people, you don't have to be perfect around me. And when someone feels that, truly feels it, they don't just like you. They seek you out. This is the real core of magnetism. Not what you say, not how you look, but how safe people feel to simply exist around you. Habit number 7. You know when to stop talking. There's a certain kind of person at every gathering. You know the one. They fill every silence. They have a story for every story. They speak in paragraphs when sentences would do. And somehow, despite all that talking, they're not the person everyone wants to be around. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Overtalking is usually a confidence problem in disguise. When we're anxious in social settings, silence feels like failure, so we fill it. We keep going, keep elaborating, keep adding, not because we have more to say, but because we're afraid of what the quiet might mean. Magnetic people understand that silence isn't a void to fill. It's a space they offer. They say what they mean, and then they stop. They let the conversation breathe. They let the other person fill the space if they want to, or simply sit in the comfort of a moment that doesn't need words. The rule is practical. If you've been speaking for more than 60 seconds without a natural pause or a question, stop. Not abruptly, just let it land and open the floor. Brevity signals confidence. Space signals generosity. And both of those things are deeply, quietly magnetic. Habit number 8. You give people credit instead of competition. Pay attention to what happens in most conversations when someone shares a win. I finally got promoted. And before the sentence is even finished, someone across the table says, oh, that's great. I actually just got offered a role at, redirect. Compete. Minimize without meaning to. It's almost reflexive. Someone shines, and without thinking, we reach for our own light. Magnetic people do the opposite. When someone shares something good, they amplify it. That's incredible. Tell me more about how that happened. They make the other person's win feel even bigger by giving it their full attention and genuine enthusiasm. This isn't just kindness, it's social intelligence. Psychologists studying group dynamics found that people who consistently celebrate others are rated as the most trustworthy and likable members of any social group. Not the most successful, not the most talented, the most generous with their attention. When you make someone feel like the most interesting person in the room, they don't forget it. And they don't forget you either. Stop competing. Start amplifying. The person who makes others shine always ends up glowing themselves. Habit number 9. You show up consistently, not perfectly. We tend to romanticize the grand gesture, the perfectly timed speech, the dramatic moment of showing up when it counts most. But real magnetism? It's built in the ordinary moments nobody's watching. It's the text you send 2 days after a hard conversation just to check in. It's showing up on time because you said you would. It's remembering that your friend has a big presentation this week and sending a simple, "How did it go?" when it's over. None of these things are impressive individually, but collectively, they build something almost no one else builds: a reputation for being reliable, for being someone whose presence in a person's life actually means something. Research on relationship longevity consistently shows that consistency matters more than intensity. The friend who checks in every few weeks outlasts the one who shows up dramatically once and disappears. The colleague who follows through on small things becomes the one people trust with big ones. Flashy gets attention. Consistent gets trust. And trust is the foundation that every truly magnetic person is standing on. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep showing up. Habit number 10. You leave people better than you found them. Here's the simplest filter for everything in this video. After every conversation, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 hours, ask yourself one question. Did I add or did I subtract? Did that person walk away feeling more energized, more seen, more capable? Or did they walk away slightly drained, slightly smaller, slightly less hopeful than before? Truly magnetic people have a net positive effect on every room they enter. Not because they're performing positivity, but because they're genuinely invested in the people in front of them. They give compliments that are specific and real. They offer encouragement that doesn't feel hollow. They make you feel like your problems are solvable and your wins are worth celebrating. This is what ties all 10 habits together: listening, validating, asking, remembering, presencing, creating safety, staying brief, celebrating, showing up. All of it points to one thing: making the people around you feel more alive. That's not a skill. That's a choice, made over and over again in small moments that most people overlook. And the extraordinary thing? The more you give that to others, the more naturally it comes back to you, not as a transaction, but as a way of moving through the world. You were never meant to fade into the background. Let's come back to where we started. That feeling of being in a room full of people and still feeling invisible. That quiet ache of trying and not connecting. If you felt that, it was never because something was wrong with you. It was because nobody ever showed you what magnetism actually looks like up close. It's not volume. It's not wit. It's not some mysterious quality handed to a lucky few. It's 10 small, learnable, repeatable behaviors, practiced consistently by people who decided that how others feel around them matters. You don't have to transform overnight. You don't have to become the loudest or the most charming or the most socially gifted person in the room. You just have to pick one habit from this video, one, and bring it into your next conversation with intention. Just one, and then another, and then another. That's how the invisible force gets built. Not in a single dramatic moment, in 100 quiet ones. The person who makes others feel seen, heard, safe, and celebrated. That person is never invisible. They are, without exception, the person everyone remembers. That person can be you. It always could have been. If this video helped you see yourself or your social habits differently, do 3 things right now. Like this video so more people can find it. Drop a comment telling me which habit hit you hardest, and subscribe if you want more content like this every week. Share it with one person in your life who needs to hear this, because sometimes the most magnetic thing you can do is pass something valuable along. I'll see you in the next one.